Hey guys, what's up? So here I am in Del Rio, Texas. I'm back from my adventure in San Angelo, and it definitely was an adventure. Like I told you before, for those of you who have been keeping up, I wasn't able to get an interview with my Couchsurfing host. The schedule just didn't work out, and I ended up only staying there 2 nights, and so it didn't turn out the way that I was planning. But I then got to stay at some friends, at a friend's place, and I was hoping to do an interview with them, but then that didn't work out, so I still didn't have a video. But I do have a story to tell you. On Saturday, I went to church, to the church that I normally go to, and I got to see a bunch of the people that I used to interact with while I was there going to school at ASU. And after the whole church service, we ended up meeting together at another church community to have like a potluck lunch. And I'm the kind of guy that I really don't like seeing people, like when people are socializing, I really don't like seeing people sitting by themselves and not talking to anyone while everybody else is having conversation with, when they're within their little cliques. So I tried to like mingle and meet new people, and especially go to the people that were sitting by themselves. But during lunch, there was this one guy in particular who was sitting at a table all by himself. He just kind of opened his Bible, and I guess he was just reading. So I was already done eating. Everybody else was eating and chatting, and I decided I'm gonna go sit with him and get to know him. So I started talking to him, and I got to know a little bit about him, and I came to find out that he was actually in San Angelo because he was doing some program that was for recovering addicts. And it was like a Christian program, and so he was trying to turn his life around. But it was gonna be like a 1-year term that he had to stay in San Angelo. And it actually wasn't in San Angelo, it was in a ranch 8 miles outside of San Angelo. And so the reason he was in town and at the church was because I guess part of the program is that he does some like regimen at the ranch, but then he ends up coming to a soup kitchen that is across the street from the church that I was at, and he kind of helps out following the pastor there and kind of like shadowing him. But the way that he understood it, it was supposed to be like a group of men that go to the program and kind of like work through the recovery process together. But it wasn't like that. It turned out that he was actually the only one there. And so instead of doing all the program as I guess it was advertised, he was kind of just shadowing the guy in charge, the pastor that was facilitating the program. And so he didn't feel that comfortable. And he started thinking, he wants to be with his family. Because one, he has 4 kids and his wife, and they're back in Houston. And his daughter's birthday was coming up, Christmas was coming up, anniversary was coming up, a whole bunch of dates, where he just really wanted to be with his family. But he's over here in San Angelo doing a program that he didn't even really feel that it was helping much. It really wasn't worth being away from his family for so long. And so he wanted to go back home. So honestly, I had no way to help him, to be completely honest and real. I didn't have a car, I barely had any money. The only thing I had going for me was I knew some people in the area. So pretty much he wanted to go home, but the pastor was still at the soup kitchen, and his wallet and all of his stuff were at the ranch 8 miles out. So we needed to figure out how to get him from in town to the ranch to get his stuff, and then back in town to get to the bus station. And so I had no idea what to do. So I asked one of the guys at the church to see if he'd be willing to give him a ride to the ranch and then back. But then it turned out that even if he went to the ranch at that time, it was gonna be all locked up because the pastor was at the soup kitchen still. So we were gonna have to wait until like about 3 or 4, maybe 5 o'clock in the evening before the pastor would go back to unlock it. And it was just crazy. We ended up having to wait until it was gonna be the time for the ranch to be unlocked. And then the friend that I asked for a ride, he was gonna come back and pick us up to take us to the ranch. So we just chilled outside on the steps in front of where the church meets, and we just talked, and I got to know him a little more. I asked him, I was like, hey man, what's your story? And he just opened up, and he just shared with me, from the background of where his parents came from to his growing up life, and just a lot of things that he got into and struggles that he had to face while growing up. So what happened was I waited with him for a while, and then this other guy comes from across the street from the soup kitchen and asked him if he was gonna go back to working at the soup kitchen. And this guy, we're gonna call him Cesar because I don't want to use his real name, and Cesar pretty much said, no, I'm not gonna go back, I wanna go back to Houston to see his family. Turns out that the 2 guys, they hadn't met before, but it turns out they were from the same area in Houston. They actually went to the same high school. Really interesting. That guy ended up helping Cesar to get to the ranch, and then brought him back to the bus station. So I lost communication with them for a while because Cesar didn't have a phone. And so that was one of the big issues because when Cesar had told the pastor that he wanted to leave, that he wasn't going to stay, and the pastor said, no, you can't use my phone. I guess Cesar had asked for it to call his wife or to call somebody to pick him up. So I ended up letting Cesar borrow my phone before he ended up leaving, and we called, he got to call his wife, he called his mom, and I mean, it was just complicated trying to figure out what steps we were going to take to get him back. But we thought maybe the best option was to get him to the bus station. So we part ways. I gave him my phone number, gave him the address to the bus station, gave him the 1-800 number for Greyhound, and so we part ways. I told him to call me if anything came up. I would help him to the best of my ability, but you know, honestly, like I didn't have my own car or anything either, and so I didn't know how I was going to help him. But I told him that I would do what I could. I went through my day. 7:30 in the evening, and I'm at a restaurant with some friends, and I get a call from a phone number that I don't know, and of course it ends up being Cesar. And he tells me, he's like, hey, I was able to get to the ranch, I was able to get my stuff, and now I'm here at the bus station, but the bus station is closed, and it doesn't open until 12 o'clock tomorrow. And so pretty much he was gonna end up being on the streets. And I was like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. I'm gonna call the guy that was originally gonna give us the ride and see if he can help us out and giving you a place to stay. And so I called that guy, but he didn't answer the phone. And so I did a bold move, and I decided to ask my friend whose house I was staying at overnight. I decided to ask him if Cesar could stay at his place overnight in the room that I was staying in. I'm a guest in someone else's home, and now I'm gonna ask if I can have a stranger that I don't even know, if this person could stay in my friend's home, you know, overnight. And like, man, that's, for me, in my eyes, that was a big favor to ask. And my friend said yes, but he was like, it's because I love you, Javi, and I trust you, and you know, so I'm gonna do this for you. And so we ended up going to pick up Cesar, and we picked him up, took him back to the place, and me and Cesar just chilled. We ended up just talking through the night, and ended up like reading scripture together and talking about more things about life, and then we got ready for bed, and then as we were getting ready to sleep, we ended up talking some more, and it was really good. And then it turned out that, because you know, I still had to figure out how I was gonna get back home to Del Rio, and then he still had to figure out, well, how is he gonna get from this house to the bus station, because it's like on different parts of the town. And so my mom ends up calling me and says, you know, hey, we'll pick you up because I don't want you to have to ride the bus, because it turned out to be my birthday on that day too. So we don't want you riding the bus on your birthday. And so they decided to come drive up to San Angelo and to pick me up. And so they came early in the morning, which worked out perfectly, because then Cesar was able to ride with me and my parents to get to the bus stop. And then we picked him up, we got him some breakfast, and then we dropped him off at the bus stop, and we said our goodbyes, and it was good. It was a really good experience, you know, and I felt like I built a friendship just because we were working together to try to figure out how to get him home. And I haven't heard from him since. I think he tried calling me when we were on our way back from San Angelo, but I missed the call. And since it's not his own phone, you know, I didn't attempt to call back, but you know, I haven't heard from him. So yeah, so this was the adventure that I faced when I was in San Angelo. This was the excitement, and it felt good, you know? This is what I want to do though, you know? I want to travel the world, meet people, and meet them where they're at. Learn about what they're struggling with, learn about, you know, what their desires are, and help them to reach those goals, help them to get to those points, you know, even if it's just something as simple as trying to get home from another place, trying to help people to do that.